Ivan and I have been privileged to live in a whole bunch of different wine producing countries and regions. We lived in South Africa, for example. We lived in France for a while. And so, this is near and dear to our heart, not to mention our interest just in drinking the wine. And it's fascinating to get this glimpse behind the scenes. I think certainly those who engaged with us on LinkedIn were also keen to know more about how you're thinking of engaging with other kinds of players in the industry more broadly. So when you think about, boosting restaurant sales, retail sales, those sorts of things, tell us more about what goes on that we wouldn't see as consumers.
For sure, and I think the first and foremost one hurdle we have in this whole industry that we play in is the government regulation. We are producing a poison, technically speaking. Alcohol is not healthy. We all know this. It's warned about right on our package, and we have to realize that there needs to be some regulations to how that product is served, how that product is distributed, and that is one thing that is hard for us to overcome. And we're celebrating the 90th anniversary of the repeal of prohibition this year, and we know we still have prohibitionary laws that kind of limit us to what we can and cannot do in the industry. But as we think about that now, we also have to start thinking about how I love the idea that wine is finally coming to a place where consumers are starting to kind of catch on to it, where 20 years ago, 30 years ago, Food Network TV started and celebrity chefs became a thing. And then, in pre-pandemic, we finally got to the point where we stopped asking about where our chickens were from and how they were treated, or where the cattle were grass fed. And we started now asking the same thing about wine, like where are these grapes grown? How are they grown? And I think that the wine industry has been trailing the food industry for about 3 decades now, and it's finally coming into a kind of a momentum shift where the conversation is now starting to be asked, where is this from and how it was made. And I think that immediately is going to help the cohesion between what we in America don't necessarily have as a European food and wine drinking culture, or food and wine eating and drinking culture. We're not quite there yet. We spent post World War II working in fields and factories and drinking beer, right? Think about the onset of the beer industry in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. We haven't really gotten, the Europeans were working in fields and factories and then going home and drinking the wine of their place. We were drinking the beers of our place and of America. So we're still kind of evolving as consumers. And then I think with that evolution of how consumers engage with our wines, we'll have a better way to collaborate in restaurants and in retail, and to understand how to get wine to more people's tables. Because I think that's the one thing we're dealing with right now. The e-commerce boom, we're a very small piece of the puzzle when it comes to e-commerce marketing in the grand scheme of things. And it's hard to ship a perishable product that can kind of heat up in Florida in July, or freeze in New England in December. So we think about it that way. It's heavy product to ship. So we're trying to still think about the efforts that we can find to bring more wine in a more sustainable way, financially and efficiently and qualitatively, to tables. And again, we don't necessarily have those answers yet. I mean, we've tried things like kegging wine, which is similar to like when an Italian or French restaurant or a Greek restaurant would buy a big batch of wine, buy the liter from their local winery, and then bring it to the restaurant and pour it for a week. We've tried those things. It just hasn't really necessarily been a part of a kind of innovation in the space yet. So I think we got about a decade before we start really truly, where we're seeing the emergence of what the new restaurant scene will be. I think you'll see the continual emergence of what the new kind of beverage scene is. And we know beverage is changing. We know the marijuana laws nationwide have changed how people consume and how people kind of use recreational marijuana or beer or spirits or wine as a relaxant or an escapist product to get away from our problems. We just need to figure out how to do that in a healthy, productive, positive way that reaches consumers how they want to be reached. And I think that is something we haven't really spent a lot of time thinking about yet.